Well, hello everyone. It is Jeremy, the existential wine guy. I'm here every Wine Wednesday around 5:30 or so. I'm going to go ahead and check this. Around 5:30 or so to, well, we're going to talk about wine. We're going to answer any questions you have about wine, as well as wax philosophical on the experience of being alive, and we're going to do it through wine with a hint towards the existential. I am coming at you live from Sacramento, California, and if it seems a little odd that would be talking about wine in Sacramento, don't forget, I'm completely surrounded by wine country. About an hour south or west of me, we've got Napa and Sonoma. A little bit to the east, we've got Lodi. We've got, which is an amazing wine growing region, a wine producing region. We also have Amador County, El Dorado County, Placer County, all these areas. I'm a stone's throw from hundreds of wineries, all of them producing fair to extraordinary wine. So I'm really lucky to be in this particular area. Today it's going to be maybe a slightly quicker or shorter show. If you've been following me for the last week or so, you know that I've been reading the book Wine and War, and basically the French resistance throughout World War II, and with a whole eye on specifically wine regions and how they did what they did to survive as well as fight the Nazis. So it was an amazing book. We're going to talk a little bit about it now. I'm going to throw out some sort of overall questions about it. But some old news first. Over the weekend, if you've been following my Instagram feed, you'll know that I was guest pouring up in Fairplay, California, over our friends at Perry Creek, and I got to say it was so much fun. Doing consulting for the wine industry over the last year or so, I haven't been behind the bar a lot the way I sort of used to be when I used to manage tasting rooms and work for various wineries. And it's something I actually miss a little bit. I miss the conversations that come up. The people we meet, how we get to talk about wine. Certainly, there might have been a lot of tasting going on because of all the great wines they have a fantastic Barbera, which is really just hits the spot so often. So was up there when I just having a great time. So again, if you're ever up in the Fairplay region, first of all, hit that region. They're doing some fantastic stuff. It is sort of a unsung area or wine area, I should say, in or just outside of Sacramento, and it will absolutely be worth your time and effort. Also, I've gotten some questions about this, the wine rack, record wine rack, how it came to be, where I got it. For that, I have to thank my sister-in-law, Kendra. She did an amazing job. She saw something similar to it on Pinterest, worked on it with her dad. I think her brother helped out at one point. And it's just, it's come to be one of our favorite little things in the house. Also, it's got a sort of a unique design. When she first brought it to me, it was one of those things where it wasn't holding the bottles well. The records were breaking, so we kind of had to. It wasn't a one and done. We had to go ahead and, or she had to go in and change it up. Anyway, she changed up the design a little bit, putting those little sort of metal brackets and strings holding everything in place. It actually made the whole thing look a whole lot better. So I have implored her to try to make more of these because we've had a lot of people asking. If you are interested in something like that, let me know. The other thing you can do is, check out Pinterest and check out what they have there. And I'm sure something, there was an inspiration behind this, and I'm sure you could find something like that as well. So where are we going to start? Let's start with the book. So the book, and I'm going to look at my notes here. The book is Wine and War by Dawn and Petey Kladstrup. Okay, so a lot of people have a good understanding of World War II, a lot of things that happened, specifically through there's movies like Band of Brothers, and any you can go to the History Channel at any point, or you could just call it the the Hitler Channel, because they will just they're constantly showing documentaries on various aspects of World War II. One of the things that happened during the war is France was really unprepared for an attack against Germany. They thought they were prepared. They had everything lined up. They had all these borders well secured, but it actually didn't work out that way. And when the Nazis did come in, the German army, it tatered them. They just weren't prepared for it. And a month later, France is basically surrendered. Germany takes over and is working with a French government to help them do whatever Nazis were trying to do, the Vichy government. And the other thing that they did right away is they wanted to capture all of the treasures of the country. And it didn't really matter if it was gold, art, but a lot of it was wine. First of all, Germans, everybody loves French wine, especially champagne. So they immediately went and secured the wine regions of Bordeaux, Burgundy, and Champagne. And it wasn't like the French didn't see this coming, especially the winemakers. They knew that as soon as the Nazis got there, they were going to plunder their entire cellars, perhaps even the winery itself. What would they do? So the first thing they did was, using any means that they are available, they would take their own cellars and actually wall them up. So they would hide the wine. And it was, there was interesting stories in the books where the men are off, trying to make these new walls that are going to hide the interior of their cellar. The children were out capturing spiders and actually putting the spiders against the newfound wall, where hopefully those spiders would start spinning their webs and make that whole area look old, so that they would detect these walls. A lot of the walls and closed off areas weren't found. Some were, to be sure, but a lot of wine was saved by doing this. And of course, they couldn't just do all of their wine, because there was so many bottles. So they would have to take their prized possessions and hide those away. Some farmers were actually going so far as to burying their wines and protecting them that way, and hoping that they would get through this, and at the end of the war they would go ahead and bring them back up. So when the Germans and the Nazis came in to secure those regions, they actually did it so effectively it caught even the Germans off guard. So now they had an occupation, and they didn't really know what to do with it. And then they had countless episodes of young German soldiers just plundering and stealing wine, and of course them being drunk on duty and just causing mayhem, including destroying 200-year-old wineries, using barrels for target practice, all sorts of horrible stuff. Germany actually had a interesting way to solve this problem, and they went so far as to assign 3 Weinführers. That's it, Weinführers, to each of those regions, Bordeaux, Burgundy, and Champagne, to work with the winemakers. Germany could have probably just stolen everything outright, but they were now an occupied part of Germany now. So they created these Weinführers to negotiate with some of the wineries. And obviously, when we say negotiate, it wasn't like a fair negotiation. They were undercutting their cost, or making them sell their wine at huge discounts, basically barely making it so that the wineries themselves could actually survive. Next thing that happens, as these Weinführers come in, they start negotiating these prices, but Germany's demands become huge, especially when it comes to Champagne. The Champagne region, the Weinführer at that time, there was an expectation to be selling and transporting 1 million bottles a month, because even though Hitler didn't enjoy alcohol and didn't drink, everybody else did. And there was also another idea that Germany had, that they were going to steal the national treasure that is wine for France. The reason why, it was a power move. It was just like, taking something from somebody just because you had the power to do that. And a lot of it ended up in the cellar of Eagle's Nest, and that was kind of one of the fun things about this book that I'm talking about. That they talk about. It kind of starts there, and as you might guess, ends there as well. We've had a few people jump on real quick. If you've just jumped on, my name is Jeremy. I'm the Existential Wine Guy, and right now we are talking about a book, Wine and War, and specifically dealing with the French Resistance fight against Hitler, and specifically the French Resistance from the wine regions of Burgundy, Bordeaux, and Champagne. So looking at my notes here again, what was more interesting to me about the wine fears is the wine fears that were picked had to be people who actually knew something about wine. Now, in Europe is a fairly small place, so the wine fears that were picked were actually wine, they say negociants, or wine traders who have been working with these wineries in one form or another for decades. A lot of these guys are their friends. They've worked together in terms of selling their wine, importing their wine, trading, all of those type of things. So in most cases, there were 3 of these wine fears. 2 out of 3 of them were actually pretty cool. And the first thing they did is they went into all the wine producers of their particular region to say, okay, we get it, and we're going to do everything we can to help this region survive, because for 2 reasons. The wine fears in these cases, even though they were German, again, friends with everybody. So, they knew that this war in one form or another wasn't going to last forever. And completely decimating the wine industry served no good whatsoever. So they did everything they could to keep these guys alive. Not to say that a lot of these wine producers were, what's the right way to do it? They were dealing with the wine fears, to be sure, but it wasn't like they wanted to. It wasn't ideal for them. And also, they were still really, really pissed at Germany. So there was all sorts of maneuvers, schemes, ways to send Germany the worst wine possible. It should go to note that in 1939, when the war began, it was one of the worst wine years ever. It was just the weather was absolutely horrible. There were new strains of bacteria. It was a really bad time. So a lot of people who were actually, a lot of wineries who were producing wine at that particular time, of course, didn't want to, it was so horrible, they probably weren't going to sell it anyway. So what they did was they reserved it for Germany, for the German army, for the Air Force, all of those type of things. And that was, in one way, a slight passive resistance against to being occupied, and to have these all these new rules and being forced to sell their wine below the actual value. So to talk about that, I mean, there were lots of amazing stories in this book, so I do recommend anybody to go out and read it. I actually found it, was going to buy it on Amazon, and then I actually said, oh, hey, let me check out the library. This was a cool thing. The library has a whole new system, at least mine does, for borrowing books electronically. So, and I actually did it through my Kindle account. So I found it in the library. I clicked a button, and it went to Amazon. Amazon sent it to my Kindle, and it was available to me for 21 days. So if you're looking to save a buck on books, I strongly encourage you to go that route as well. We have a bunch of people jumping on right now, and I just don't want to thank them for being here. Kitty Gaga is there. Thank you so much. Always good to see you there. One of my favorite restaurants, and this, I will just call this as a shout out. Aoli Bodega is a Spanish restaurant in Midtown, slightly downtown Sacramento. I had my 40th birthday there. Every time we go there, it's just, the food is wonderful. They have an amazing wine selection. So they've joined me. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you over there. Viewing this, and it looks like is it Tara? She's on there as well. And let's see, who else do we have? Drinks by Drew, thank you so much. I've given you shout outs for a long time. Love what you are doing for drinks in Sacramento. So thank you for joining me again today. Also, Charlie has taken a few minutes away from studying to join me. So thank you so much for helping me out today. So getting back to the book, if you are a fan of the history of World War II, it is a great book to read. If you're a fan of wine, it is an extraordinary book to read as well. One of my favorite moments is there were a German or a POW camp, and following one of the stories is the night that they had, La Fête, and somehow through asking, borrow, stealing, and blackmailing, the prisoners that were there one night had a party. And they were able to bring in wines from all over France. And I mean, it was a tough situation. There was very little food. At the end of the actual event, the prisoners were probably only got maybe a mouthful or two of wine from a region that they had hoped to taste. But it was talked about for decades afterwards. It gave them life. It gave them a reason to live. And I thought that was so interesting. And everything that I've just brought up about this book brings me to this point. For France, wine is their national identity. Different types of it. It is part of their lifestyle. It is part of their life. And I was thinking about America. Do we have that? Do we have a national identity? We, by design, we are a melting pot of every different type of country and culture. Does that sort of preclude us, make it tougher for us to actually have a national identity? And even so, do we actually need one? So that's another thing. There are certainly people these days who feel that we do. They feel it should be a certain type and a certain color. I disagree with them wholeheartedly. In fact, I thought we fought, that Second World War so we wouldn't have that. But more than anything, one reason I was going to keep this a little bit on the short side is I really would love to hear from you. I would love to hear what you think of, do we have a national identity? What would it be? How should it be? And do we even need one at this point? In the country and the sort of the thing that in the way that we are living right now, there seems to be a lot of expectation on us to have a national identity. And every time I hear it, it sounds so disingenuous. Whether it be someone protesting by taking a knee, or somebody protesting by running through a city yelling, "Kill the Jews." We live in these crazy times, and I would just love to hear anything that you guys would have to say, and something that we can bring up at a following live event that I do here. Again, if you're just joining me, it's Jeremy, the Existential Wine Guy, and I come to you every Wednesday at 5:30, every Wine Wednesday, to talk about wine, to talk about the experience of being alive through wine. So I don't have a lot of questions today, and like I said, I did want to keep this a little bit on the short side. But please, if you're looking at this later on, if you're looking at during one of the replays, I would love to hear anything you've got going or any thoughts that you have. Please put them in my comments, and we will kind of figure that out all later. All right, it's about 20 minutes. Oh, well, gosh, I didn't think I'd take the whole 20 minutes. Oh, almost forgot. What am I drinking? Was just walking through Trader Joe's and found a nice Chilean Cabernet Sauvignon that was way too inexpensive. So I opened it up, and I was just thinking that this was just, gonna suck. And I was wrong. I was pleasantly surprised. It was just it's been a fantastic little. I didn't really drink it during the broadcast. Wait. Now I have. But it also, helps me loosen up, and I actually like Chilean wines quite a bit. even the Cabernet Sauvignons are just, they have a very different tone from California and certainly a different tone from Napa. And it's nice to switch things up every so often. And I am getting a quick note from Matt, who's just joined us. I'm going to read that in just a sec because I can't do a lot of things at the same time. However, again, I appreciate everybody who stayed in there with me today. I know that we went a little bit more to the esoteric than just talking about wine as much as I normally do. I will be getting back to that next week for sure. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me. Again, Jeremy, the Existential Wine Guy. If you get a chance, would love to have you follow me on Instagram. If you're not already following me on Instagram, Existential Wine Guy on Instagram and on Facebook, and pretty soon I'll be releasing my YouTube channel, and I'll hope that everybody could follow me there. Until then, salud and cheers. And no, seriously, I'm out.